biggest fitness myths. Now, I just know there are going to be so many of you with questions about this. Already we're bombarded day to day. We've just discussed on the panel before the fact that the male industry, actually, the fitness industry, seems to be the only represented large male platform for men to look at online, which is really interesting. But to my right, we have my dear friend, Rowena. Carly's a personal trainer, a health and fitness blogger. She has the most incredible YouTube, the most beautiful little girl called Jax. And I've known Carly for a long time now, but she knows her stuff. She's been there, mum now, and working in the fitness industry for quite a long time, seen a lot of changes. And Lawrence, again, I've known for a long time, you're both incredible. Another personal trainer, model, former rugby player, and equally many years, and he has two gorgeous young children as well. So we've actually got two parents rocking it here and still having an online presence. And I think it opens up the first question quite rightly, which is that fitness is often associated, like the nutrition industry, with weight loss. It is all people tend to talk about. So what are your views on, let's go with HIIT classes? Carly, do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, hello everybody. I'm really hungry watching you all eat, I can't lie. HIIT classes, I used to absolutely love them, and I think there's a definite place for HIIT classes, but I do also think we have to be mindful of how stressed a lot of us are. So for me, when I work with my clients, it's all about reducing their stress, and I think HIIT classes do promote a lot of that, depending on what your lifestyle is like. So I also think we want to be more functional, so there's a place for HIIT classes, but I also think you want to experiment with different types of training, and that's where you get the best results.
Yeah, completely. And Lawrence, from I'm actually going to give you guys this mic again, because I don't talk as much as you two throughout, and I think this is slightly weaker. Yes, that's better, there we go.
Nice little changeover there.
There we go, nice little changeover.
Smooth.
If we go back to how the male perspective of fitness is viewed, do you think it's very much a case of men have to be hitting it even harder than women because that's what we're designed to do? Is there still that kind of approach?
Yeah, I think there's probably a hangover from the 80s and 90s bodybuilding kind of image of what it was to train if you're a man, what you're trying to obtain, and obviously the aesthetics of it being a huge part of it in terms of muscle mass, and we've seen that in the marketing over the years. But I think we're seeing a bit of a shift and a bit of a change away from purely aesthetics, away from purely strength-based work to how you feel, particularly in the mental health space as well for guys, and encouraging more men to take up training as a tool to be able to manage the way they feel from a psychological point of view, but also from an emotional point of view as well when it comes to training as well.
Well, the fact that you're both now parents, has that given you a different shift as well? I mean, Lawrence, now the fact you've got two children, does it not make you look at this industry in a different light as well?
Yeah, we were just having this conversation upstairs actually. We were saying it's such a funny one because in many ways when you become a parent, fitness, from being probably the most important thing in your life that you mould every day around, becomes the least important thing in so many ways, and yet in other ways it's again the most important thing because you want to be the best version of yourself for your family. You want to be able to think of things like active longevity. You want to have the energy that you need for parenting. You want to be able to do what you want to do from a career point of view, and so to do that you have to be the best version of yourself. You have to put yourself first when it comes to fitness, but then finding the time and having the time is a challenge.
Exactly, and to throw it over to Carly, we know the benefits of exercise are endless. We know that it's good for mental health, it's good for longevity, cardiovascular health, I could name it all, but as a woman in particular, and Carly's someone that's inspired me throughout my pregnancy to keep going. I told Carly very, very early on, and I was like, I'm pregnant, babe, oh my goodness, what does this mean? I was kind of panicking. But Carly's a CrossFitter. And Carly is not some huge, bulky, weighty person sat right next to me, and that's such a huge common misconception, isn't it?
I know someone might go, she's really bulky. Is that on?
Yes, it is. I think sometimes it's just the angle.
Right. Yes, sorry. Is that good?
Yeah, so now asking about CrossFit, the weight stereotypes.
Well, I think when I was pregnant, everyone told me I was mental for continuing with exercise. I even got told I was going to lose my child while I was pregnant because I was still continuing with CrossFit. I think what you need to think about when people are pregnant or exercising is what you're seeing is a snippet of my life at that time, but you don't maybe know what I was doing before. I was always doing CrossFit, so when I was pregnant, what I did was just reduced it down, so I wasn't being as intense as I would have been before, but it would look quite intense to people who weren't doing CrossFit. So I've always kind of said to people, when you're training, if you're pregnant, what you want to do is continue doing the same thing, because your body knows that so well, continue at good strength, your mental health, all of that, but we just reduce it and listen to how we're actually feeling internally.
And equally, for so many women in the room today, it's quite empowering when you lift a weight, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that was why I ended up trying weights, because I remember picking it up and being like, I feel strong, I feel independent, I feel powerful, I can carry my own shopping, sometimes it still really hurts if I'm carrying like 8 bags, but I love that feeling of feeling strong and not needing the help of anybody else. And for me, when I joined the fitness industry, it was, 9 years ago, there was hardly any women in the female, which I now say it's a female and male zone, but male zone, and it's amazing now to see how that has changed. And I think weights plays a huge part in that, because there's so much more you can do than just cardio.
So what about, Lawrence, the frequency? What's the kind of goal? How much should we all be aiming to, I don't know, lift a weight, walk more, pick up more shopping bags?
Well, I always get made to pick up shopping bags, so I do that probably too much. I'm probably overtraining my shopping bag training at the moment. But it all depends from person to person. Obviously, it depends on your starting point, what your goals are, what's realistic according to your life and so on. But I like to think of us as oranges that you cut in half, and you've got a little segment of each strength training. You've got your cardio work, you've got your joint health.
I like this analogy.
Yeah, we want to be a complete orange, right? We don't want to just be one or two segments. So you don't have to absolutely kind of smash your HIIT work or your HIIT training in one direction. But I think trying to be a nice complete orange is a nice kind of analogy to have in the back of your life.
Okay, let's all be more orange in the room. That's a very good analogy. And do you find, Lawrence, as a man training female clients, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you hear?
Do you know what? I think some of the misconceptions are changing and evolving as we're all kind of moving forward and educating ourselves more about what it is we want to do and how to achieve them. I generally think that more female clients now enjoy and love and want to do weight training as well, and the old misconception of more cardio over weight training because of the whole bulky tummy thing. I think that's kind of hopefully part of the bygone era now. I'm seeing more and more my female clients want to focus their goals on functional-led goals, so CrossFit type led workouts and so on, and less so perhaps on aesthetics, although that's a nice byproduct. And obviously I think there's so much that goes into training within a whole open space, and you've got your aesthetics and fat loss at one end point, and you've got this amazing stuff that happens in between, which might be your functionally led goals, how heavy you can deadlift, how fast you can run 400 meters. It might be your mental wellness, it might be joint articulation, which is going to serve you for 10, 20, 30, 40 years time. Stave off arthritic issues. I think more and more people are having those conversations with me about this is what I'm training, this is what I want to do. But it'd be nice to have a little bit of fat loss on the side, and that will naturally happen if you focus on
And
it.
again, it's okay to say that, because what we've experienced on nearly every single panel today has been, I don't feel I can say I want to lose weight, or I don't think I can say that I want to eat a bit better anymore. That we've almost gone too far. Remember, you're all having unique goals. And Carly and I discussed on our episode a lot of things about how you can get active at home that you probably just take for granted, that you don't really think about, that's getting you moving.
Yeah, at the end of the day, exercise is just movement. So whenever I take on a client, I like to find out what their hobbies are, because a lot of us have forgotten that you don't have to be in a gym or a CrossFit box or even using a Peloton at home. You just have to be moving in a way that you enjoy. And if you love to dance, or you'd be amazing on TikTok if you love to dance. I
don't know this TikTok thing.
I'll show you it later. If there's a way of moving that you enjoy, that is exercise. If you're someone who's just walking the dog, or maybe you go meet friends and go for a walk and chat things over, that's exercise. We don't need to be quite so rigid with what we think it has to be. It doesn't have to be confined to a gym. And in fact, for a lot of us, what we actually want is the mental headspace. So if you can find a nice way to move your body that doesn't confine you to a zone where a lot of people are feeling quite self-conscious, that's going to do so much better for you.
I couldn't agree more. And weight-bearing exercise, when we use that term, we just mean building on your bone density, looking at your muscle mass, because we know as we age, we do lose these things. It's something we have to be conscious of equally as well. Would you say for someone that's just going to step into picking up a weight or lifting what's a good example of something you can lift at home that weighs something, like a heavy bottle of water, or I'm trying to think of examples. A can of sweet corn wasn't quite cutting it in my head. I was like, maybe something a little bit.
The cat.
But what would you say to someone that wants to get fit for the first time? What would be both of your takes on some advice to encourage them, motivate them?
I'd say, do you know what, if I had actually, after having Jack, I felt like I got the chance to do it again, but if you are able to start from scratch, I envy you, because you have the opportunity to take things slow and make massive changes with doing massive changes to yourself with making very small changes. We kind of all go into this as if we're stepping on stage, and we strip back all of our food and we train as many times as we possibly can. But we've all forgotten that a really small change will make a big difference. So if you can start again and just be like, okay, I'm just going to try and train twice a week. I'm going to up my water. Instead of having so many processed things, I'm going to try and do more things at home. You will notice such a big difference. And you have so many ways in which you can add even better rules to your life. Whereas I think a lot of us now we've removed all the naughty foods, we're training every minute that we possibly can. We're a bit like, where do we go from here? If you could start again now, and you have the access to all the knowledge that's out there for free, you are winning, because you don't have to do so many things. It's really small things that will make such a big difference.
And Lawrence, if we can ask you, because I know you do a lot with different online apps as well, there is different access now, isn't there, to motivate you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes creating the right environment to respond to is a lot easier than trying to force yourself into all these habits that go against the grain. And so there's so much that you can stream into your home now to get you moving and to get you coached. And I think we all need a coach one day, everyone will have one, but it won't all be done in person, it will be done potentially online. I think that's the way things are going. But I think just on that point, if you're starting off, I think just mastering how to move with just your body weight and just getting your compound strength up purely with just your body weight. The fundamentals never leave you, and it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or an advanced athlete, making sure that you have good ankle to hip mobility so that you can stop with depth and recruit the right muscles is a key skill. It's a surprising amount of people who are loading up their body above and beyond their body weight but don't yet have that mobility there. So yeah, I think it's really
Well, that touches on one of my biggest bugbears, and that is seeing people that may look the part, but how on earth do you know who is actually giving you the good advice when it comes to the fitness industry? Just because they may look super duper fitnessy, stereotypical, aesthetic, doesn't necessarily mean they're qualified to be speaking about it.
No, I mean, and social media, a lot of the platforms on social media are visual platforms, and so a lot of people can be drawn to that, but you have to make sure that you dig below the surface a little bit more just to try and get a little bit more detail as to, how to move correctly. I mean, exercise prescription, we see that thrown across Instagram, and obviously what exercises that are right for you depend on where you're stiff, where you're tight, where you want to go, where you're coming from physically, and all these other matters. So exercise prescription and execution are two things that should come hand in hand, but oftenly are presented separately. For instance, you might say to someone to squat, okay, that's fine, but what's happening in terms of tension distribution, what's happening in terms of your hips and your ankle range of movement. A lot of the time, I feel like getting up on my feet and demonstrating.
I think you're going to have to, because most of us won't know ankle distribution.
Yeah.
The mobility that you have at your ankle directly affects your hip. And another myth, we're all told, just wanted to stand up. We're all told, you may well have heard that cue, don't let the knees go beyond the toes when it comes to squatting. And yes, that is true, certainly for the first 8 weeks, potentially of your training, but beyond that, what you're actually trying to achieve is good dorsiflexion of the ankle, which dorsiflexion of the ankle is when the toe comes up, when you flex the ankle and the toe comes up towards the knee. And we're always taught to yeah.
Oh, that is.
Yes.
For those at the back.
I've got tight jeans, but it's like that basically. So we're all taught don't let the knees go beyond the toes when you squat. So you go down, you start to reach the point where I think my knees now are in line with my toes, they can't go any further. And then you think, but I've got to get deeper, I'm told to get my hips below my knees. And so then you start putting more pressure into the hips, more pressure into the back, and then you're told to keep your chest up, so you start extending along the spine. You're this is a squat, this is great because my heels are on the floor, my knees are behind my toes and so on, etc. That is good for it's good general advice for mass populations, but actually once you start getting into training, once you start developing good mobility of the ankle, you should be able to go into good dorsiflexion where the knees go beyond, and it should allow you to sit into a position where you have a straight and maintained spine that actually reduces load onto the hips and the low back a lot more, and it's actually okay that the knees going beyond the toes. I think there was a study done in 2003 that said squatting in this manner with the knees beyond the toes will increase the force through the knees by 28%, but it's more of a compression force as opposed to a shearing type force, which is what you'd experience if you were trying to keep the knees back.
Watch a baby squat, I think, as well.
Yeah, exactly. And actually trying to squat with your knees directly in line with your toes and working as hard as you can in the hips and the back actually can increase the pressure there by 1,000% as opposed to 28% at the knees.
Thank you for demoing that for us. And I think, Carly, doesn't this just go to back up that you see these unbelievable looking workouts? Let's say there's a running treadmill and someone's like, squat, jump, while the treadmill's still going, they're making all these really incredible looking videos. But often they may not be focusing on the smallest corrections.
I think the thing with social media, it's a highlight reel, right? No one wants to show like a workout where they're just squatting if they haven't got, Jen Selter's bum. Everyone wants to look their best online. They want to be doing something that makes you go, oh, I really want to follow them. That's what they want. But actually, if you're thinking about maybe following a program that they're doing or maybe being trained by them, you are able to message them and say, what are your qualifications first and foremost? And what they're putting online isn't necessarily how they're going to be training you. We're all individual. I think that's really important. You also need to remember that when you follow people's workouts, because they might have been like a gymnast for years, and you're like, why can't I do a triple backflip into a squat? So you need to kind of be realistic with what your goals are. Think about why they're posting those things to begin with anyway. It might be that they've got bored of posting the same old videos, and what they're looking at online is people doing things even more extreme, so it's always kind of a battle.
Yeah, it is. And another one that I'm going to bring up, the controversial subject, is the nutrition advice amongst the fitness industry. It baffles me. I'm trying to understand how to even. There's such an emphasis on protein. Such an emphasis. And I know we're kind of past the point of knowing we don't necessarily always need a protein shake. But I bet you can both count, you've lost count of how many times people are asking you about protein.
It used to be like the first question when a client would come in and they'd find to me, they'd be like, so what protein powder do I need? And I'd be like, do you need a protein powder? I think we have kind of moved on from that, and a lot of, I think the pictures of people kind of posting with a protein shake next to them while they're doing the workout, that's kind of died down too. I do think that there is a place for adding in those kind of supplements if perhaps you're on a specific diet, maybe if you decide to go vegan, all those kind of things, we're going to be lacking some nutrients. So in that case, yes, but for a lot of us, no. You want to be looking at what your diets are naturally and then look to add in if you can't do it with going to your local supermarket and cooking yourself.
Completely. And Lawrence, have you seen a host of pills or things that people think they need to be taking? Because I remember when I first stepped foot in a gym, seeing a whole side shelf of the fitness supplements that I should be taking, like green tea extracts, BCAAs, collagen.
I think, from a guy point of view, again, it goes back to this hangover from the 80s and 90s bodybuilding scene where that was the fitness industry for guys, and you'd be told that you have to buy these massive tubs of protein with some guy jacked up with steroids on the front of it, or creatine, or whatever it might be. And then you're kind of like, I remember at university, guys coming home with all sorts to try and get them.
Well, as a rugby player, you must have also had this kind of thrust upon you.
Yeah, and certainly as a rugby player, there's pressure to be big, there's pressure to be stronger in sports performance, and that ties a lot, as we know, sports personnel to do a lot of things. But from a sports nutrition point of view as well, also told things like you should be seeking to eat 3 grams per kilogram of your body weight in protein.
Can I just add that is not advisable?
And then years and years later, you sort of find out, actually that was an insane, incredible amount, and you're waking up trying to have 3 or 4 chicken breasts for breakfast, lunch, supper, and so on. But yeah.
Equally, the discussion around calorie consumption, I think in this particular industry, sports nutrition, just to throw it out there, is completely different to your regular nutrition. It's very methodical, it's very performance driven, it's not your everyday today I'm going to nourish and look after my well-being type of nutrition. It's a very specific focused thing. And I'm seeing a lot of talk at the moment with people saying, oh, I specialise in female fitness, it's calories in, it's calories out. It's not all just about that when you're trying to train someone. How do you shift the mindset of people that are coming to you with that?
I think it depends on the people that come to you. So the people that generally come to me know that I am not going to be putting them on a 1,000-calorie diet. When they come to me, I'm also very lucky, and I've worked really hard, I'm sure you have too, to know people that are in the industry, professionals who you can divert people onto. I can help someone come up with a meal plan, of course they can. I can help you work out your calories. Am I fading? I can help you do all of those things, and we can be successful. But there's also things that I'm not going to know. My main specialism is around training. So if I'm not sure on your background, or you've got a specific maybe eating disorder, and someone like Re is who I'm going to send you to, and we collaborate together. I think a lot of the time in the industry, people think they need to kind of hoard their people in and not share, because if you share them, they might move on and not follow you anymore or work with you. But actually, the more people you work with in this industry, the more you learn, the more your client gets back, and the more effective it is for them. That's kind of the way I would go about it. I do think, with a lot of people sharing like what they eat and things like this online, people can get confused and think they are a nutritionist. They're not. And again, make sure that you double check. If you're going to trust what they're selling you, you can ask them. And if they want to back it up, then great. If they can't, then move on and ask them somebody else.
I mean, it is a big problem, and it's really good we've got you both speaking out about it. And Lawrence, before I take questions from the audience, would you say that in terms of different disciplines, different fitness, I'm in and out, but it's okay, it's fine, we're going here. In terms of different sports and different disciplines, when someone comes to you with a goal saying, I want to run faster, does that change the way you train them? Compared to if they just wanted to get bigger?
Yeah, I think someone's goal will dictate how you train to a certain degree, but again, it depends on who walks into the room. Ultimately, everyone needs a grounding of strength. Everyone needs to have that compound strength. They need to be able to, talking to the S&C, head of S&C for the Rams NFL team, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I have a conversation with guys going to tell me all these kind of secrets about how they get the athletes to perform, because just to make the team, they have to sprint 20, 40 meters to a certain time, otherwise it doesn't matter how talented they are, they're not in. And it was like, we just yeah, that's it. If you don't hit your fitness testing, that's it. You're not in. But so they've got to hit certain testing throughout the year. And he was like, we just make sure that they can squat, that they can deadlift, and that they can bench press certain weights before we even take them on to diversify and all these other sort of areas. So I'll normally have a conversation with someone and find out a bit about their training history and see then how strong they are with regards to their squat and their deadlift and how well they move and so on. And once they have that kind of cornerstone down, there's several cornerstones to get in place. One of them is their compound strength. One of them is just a growth mindset as well. So making sure that they have all various foundation cornerstones in place, and then you can start to say, well, now we can do speed training, and then we can do everything else from there.
Well, doesn't it just go to show how complicated these things are? And it always looks so simple online, but it's actually not. It takes a lot of different processes. If you could leave everyone with a food for thought before we take questions, just a kind of good general take-home message, because you both managed to fit it in. I'm just going to say that. They both managed to fit in looking after yourselves and your family lives.
I think for me, I want to live as long as I can, feeling as good as I can, and I move because I want to, and I eat because I can, and that can go vice versa. For me, it's not always easy. I get up and I will go and train while my little one's asleep, because it's the only time. And yeah, I don't get to train 6 times a week for 2-3 hours if I want to. That's all gone. I don't have that time. But now my training for me is not based around aesthetics, it's based around making me feel good, getting those endorphins. It's my own selfish time, which is what I really, really want. And as a byproduct, it does help me stay in the shape that I want to, so I can enjoy the foods and everything else that I want to do. And I think if I could tell you to do anything, it would just simply be to move because you can, eat because you want to, and just follow that. And honestly, with clients, the more clients I get that enjoy the process, the bigger results they have. The ones that constantly want just this flat tummy or this big bum, they're the ones that are the hardest to make change, because they're so preoccupied with all the little things when really they can just enjoy it.
Yeah, at the risk of echoing Carly there, completely, I don't want to be an automated human. Yes, measurables and metrics are great and fantastic, and you have to have an understanding of the science, but once you've learnt it, once you've lived it for a month or two, applied it to your training, then you can almost kind of, I think, disregard it and focus on the feeling. Hello, I'm back. Focus on the feeling, and as you say, you know, like it's great to set goals. You know, we're not saying don't set goals, but if you are only ever fixated on the one goal that's ahead of you, you miss the process, and life is the process. Whether you're talking about your career, whether you're talking about your fitness journey, you have to find a way to love the process, because you don't want to wake up one day having lost that 10% body fat that you thought life was all about, only to realise that you've missed that whole chapter of your life and you haven't enjoyed it. Life is a process, find a way to enjoy it.
Lovely. Do we have any questions, any fitness myths, any questions about you straight away? One over here at the back. Take this one.
We can just shout.
Hi, I've got a question about overtraining. I get ribbed constantly for overtraining, but then I've read a lot of things from professionals that say overtraining isn't really a thing, and lots of people train a lot. So I just wondered what your thoughts were and where overtraining is or isn't a thing, or where there's a line, or is it blurred lines?
So, that was loud. So no one knows your body better than you, right? And you can look at a program and it can tell you that you know, you're meant to be training 3 times this week, but actually you feel damn good and you think actually, you know, there's a 4th training session that you're more than capable of and you'll get something from that. It comes down to deeply connecting with yourself and knowing yourself and being honest with yourself as well. But the trouble when it comes to training, we do sometimes have this emotional thought process that makes us kind of want to attack the workout that we shouldn't have done. And it's knowing when not to train and when to train very often, which is a skill completely in itself. And it's a mindfulness skill in many ways that sits separately to the physical approach to training. But there is such a thing as overtraining, and essentially what we want to happen and what we want to occur is adaptation, and adaptation happens through stress and it happens through stimuli upon the body. So that's essentially what training is. You know, we're breaking down structures so they regrow. Muscle regeneration is what we're looking for, but a big part of that regeneration is rest. There's no point in breaking down and not giving the body the chance to regenerate and grow. But you, as I say, will know your body better than anyone else. And you might be extremely fit, and people might just be like, wow, you're doing a lot of training. But if in doubt, listen to your body.
Over here at the front, just to mix it up. Oh, there's one over here at the back. We'll just take that before we come over.
For people who don't exercise often. Hello? Yeah. For people who don't exercise often, it's hard to stay motivated. And to see the health benefits, you know, whether it's mental health or the other physical health benefits, how do you, because you don't see them straight away, so how do you keep people motivated to continue exercising until they get to that level?
I think that's when you have to look at the other effects of exercise. So although, I mean, let's just say that what you want is to, I don't know, lose some weight, or you're looking for an aesthetic goal, which is what a lot of people pick on. If you're unable to train a lot, that's probably going to be something that takes quite a while. So that's when you want to notice things like, am I sleeping better? Do I feel happier? Has my mood been affected at all? It's kind of, do I have more energy? There's so many other things. I know they're not particularly sexy, but generally those are the kind of things that keep you going. And then that's where you want to have the small goals in, such as, you know, that's where the strength goals, such as, can I now do a push-up and I couldn't do it last week? Can I now hold a plank for 2 seconds longer? They're not so fun, but trust me, if you go with those, you'll be so proud of yourself, and then when you're focusing on those, then your body will suddenly just change, and you'll be like, didn't even realise. So I know it's tough when you can't do it all the time, but trust me, there are things happening, and just keep doing it.
Sorry, just on that motivation point as well, because it's such a good question, and it's one we have conversations about a lot. My thoughts on it are that motivation is like an emotion. And we can't rely on an emotion for consistency and continuity, because like anything, it'll come and go. You know, some days we'll feel motivated, some days we will not, and that's completely the same for all of us fitness professionals as well, trust me. But I do think that once we bought into the concept of fitness enhancing our life and being a cornerstone to live a full life, I think that a form of self-love is actually discipline. I know that sounds like you know, not the sort of kindest thing to say in many ways, but I think that self-love is. And so creating structure and creating routine that we adhere to at least 80% of the time, even when we don't want to, I think is a form of self-love and will get us through those periods of not feeling motivated.
Cutting and bulking, I feel like it's become a really sexy phrase. Is there a place for it? If so, when? And do you ever practice it with your clients?
There's definitely a place for it. There's a certain style of training or what people want. Definitely there's a place for it. I think it depends on the goals that you want. The problem I'm finding is a lot of people who are constantly cutting, and that's not a technically healthy thing to do. And I think the majority of us are we're wanting a look and we're wanting to feel better. We don't need to put ourselves on this kind of continuous bulking and cutting phase because we don't need to step on stage for 5 minutes. So I think you want to think what your goals are. If your goals are something like that, or you do need to put on some muscle because you want to be stronger, then perhaps look at it, but it doesn't need to be quite so regimented.
Yeah, I agree, and it's I've never, well, not in recent years, I've never really kind of cutted or bulk it, gone through a bulking or cutting phase. But I again, the WBFF stuff, and it's a different part of the fitness industry that I don't really operate in, and I really respect it and think it's amazing, but I don't know enough about it, and I don't operate in that area, as I say. But from my point of view, I just like to have an overall general approach. That means if I have to reduce body fat because I have, I'm in slightly different positions. There's always a bit of pressure. If I had to for a shoot or something like that, then I could work over a few weeks to do it. But I wouldn't live like that if it was my choice, because it's not really enjoyable, I have to say, and I enjoy food more. So
to close on that, it is very, very important, because I see a lot, and we get it in the nutrition clinic all the time, and Talia, our dietitian that works with eating disorders as well, we see people that feel under immense pressure because of what they see online. Oh, I should be cutting, I should be calorie counting, I should be bulking up, I should be doing all these different things. But as you've just heard, there are so many other aspects. So a big thank you to Lawrence and Carly for sharing their time with us.